So I'm going to give a brief overview of labels and PPE. I don't think we'll have time to get into the laws stuff because that like can literally take hours to go through, but you'll get a little taste for some of it in here. And then if you need more, please let Matt, Andrea, or myself know, and we can go more in depth. Okay. So we're going to go through different parts of pesticide labels, what they have in them, why it's important, and the fact that these are legal documents. Every single pesticide label has at least one, anything that is registered by the EPA, right? So if it has the EPA reg number, it will have a statement in there saying that it is a legal document. So we all need to follow everything that's on these labels, and because it's a legal document, it does have some legalese in there we have to be careful with. Okay. These are main components of the first page of a label. So you'll have the brand name at like this one is Admire Pro Systemic Protectant. The full name is important, but I wouldn't recommend referring to products simply by their trade name because there's like 50 different types of Roundup and all of them have different active ingredients in different use cases, in fact, right? So um, just saying Roundup doesn't is not really that great. Sorry, that great of a reference. So if you can see the EPA registration number, that's like two things down there on the left side, those are unique identifiers for each product. So if depending on your formulation of Roundup or whatever, right, it'll have a different number there. So you'll know exactly the one you were using. It'll be the same formulation, same active ingredients, same concentration, etc. Okay, right above that, there's the ingredients list. This is really important for a lot of reasons. You want to know what your active ingredient is. There are many different brands that have the same active ingredients. So you might be able to get something, a generic brand for cheaper that does the same thing as a name brand, for example. You also need to know this and percentages in case of emergencies or incidents, as they're referred to in several laws. So if you have spillage, um, you will have to calculate your like pounds of active ingredient that were spilled, and you get that from these percentages here. So if it's on the EPA list of lists, you have to do that. If it's not on the EPA list of lists, you don't need to worry too much. Um, I mean, you still need to clean it up, right? But the reporting stuff doesn't matter as much. A lot of labels are quite nice. They say like this one contains 4.6 pounds of active ingredient per gallon. Um, it does the math for you. It's quite helpful. Not all labels are that helpful. All right, so on the bottom there is manufacturer. Um, you know, it's like shoes, right? Do you like Nike or Adidas? Um, Mode of action is quite important. So these are the IRAC classifications. So IRAC is Insecticide Resistance Action Committee classifications of group of mode of action. Not all labels will have this on it. Um, but it's really useful when they do because you want to have a resistance management program. You want to change active ingredients every like cycle, so if you have a spray program, you need it for your IPM program, right? You want to change mode of actions for every application or even mix several modes of actions in one application if that works better for you. Staying with the same mode of action, uh, can cause resistance in insects or weeds or fungi, for example. So they have the WRAC for weeds and FRAC for fungi, for example. This one is an insecticide, so it's IRAC. Um, but yeah, you want to change those modes of action so you don't develop a resistant population. It's quite important to check this out. If you don't see it there, you can always visit the IRAC website and check, or just Google it. Like what mode of action is this? And then it'll tell you based on your active ingredient. Signal weird is quite important. This is how you know your acute toxicity, how relatively dangerous this product is to interact with. This one is a very low caution word. This is the lowest one. There's three: caution, warning, danger, and then danger, poison. So, it's a good indication that this is a bit safer to work with than something that has a danger signal word. Okay. Another label here, same kind of deal. I'll kind of go through this quickly just so because we only have 20 minutes, yeah. But key things here, all the information's there. This one also has CAS numbers associated with the active ingredient. Usually you'll find that on the SDS, not the label, but this one is helpful. It has it there. So if you are concerned about what laws are being triggered by spilling this, you can look up the CAS number really easily because it's on the label. Of course, in agriculture, like WPS requirements, you have to have the SESs anyways. They always have it in SES, so you can just check that. Okay, this one is a warning signal word, so one up, just an example of that. You can see the formulation on the name on this product, which is kind of cool. The Admire product, it's like hidden on page 5 in, the big block of text, right? This one says in the name, it's in the most viable concentrate. It's kind of helpful to have that information. Okay, here's another label here. This one you can see danger poison, right? This is the highest level signal word you're going to interact with a pesticide. You can see at the very top that this is also a restricted use product. All federally restricted use products will have this on the top, and you won't be able to buy it unless you're a certified applicator. State restricted use products won't have that on the top, but you still need to have an applicator cert to be able to purchase it from a dealer. And they will enforce that. So you won't just mistakenly buy some restricted use product. Formulation, quite nice. They put it there in small words, but it's not like in the name like it was in the other one. And as always, there's EPA registration number. Okay, there's different types of registration for pesticides. There's a federal EPA registration, which we just saw. There's like the label that comes in the jug, right? There's also special local needs labels, and you can access them at the Department of Ag's website. These are special use cases that are off of the original label, but the state approved them for use. If you're going to use one of those uses, you need to have the SLN with you. There's, excuse me, also such things called emergency exemptions. So, the state does this as well, pesticides branch. There are some emergency exemptions out there, and we'll look at examples of SLNs and special local needs now. Both of them are on the Department of Ag pesticides branch website. So if you're interested in your product, you can check it. It's an example of the something that the conservation industry uses. It's an herbicide that they put in paintballs, which is definitely off the original label, but there is a special local needs label for this in Hawaii, right? So the research was done, it was approved. They're allowed to fly around in helicopters and shoot paintball guns with herbicides in it. Pretty cool. Definitely not on the original label, but an example of something you can see here. This is in Section 18 emergency exemption. We have these in Hawaii. This is one of them that we have here in our state. This is for coconut rhinoceros beetle control. This product is not allowed normally for use on palm crowns, but in this emergency exemption, it is a huge economic and environmental impact to have insects here, so they're just throwing anything they can at it. These usually have a shorter kind of time period that they're allowed to be used in, and they'll eventually want to follow it up with more rigorous research and get like a special local needs or something like that. But something had to get done, right? So they're throwing this one at it. You can see both of these, they have their mode of action in there, so it's quite handy. You can see and mix up your modes of action. I already talked about the signal words, but it's here again. Caution being the safest, least acutely toxic, then warning, then danger, and then danger poison is there for like ingestion risk. Danger and danger poison is acute, very highly acutely toxic. Okay, some things that may be a bit confusing to most people, and including me. I'm not a lawyer, so when I read documents, I don't really tend to pay attention to these words so much, but they're really important in labels because all labels have that statement that you have to follow the label, right? It's in the directions for use. It's always the same statement. it's a violation of federal law to use this product inconsistent with its labeling, right? So now it's a legal document. Okay, if a label says must, you must. If it says you are required to, you are required to. But if it says you should wash your hands before you smoke, that's a suggestion. It's you're not going to get dinged by an inspector if you don't wash your hands before you smoke, even though you should wash your hands before you smoke. Um, some stuff that's really there's like some gray area in interpretation, which is not super awesome. It depends on who you talk to and what perspective the enforcer has. So like the inspector has on this, but language like such as or including, some people interpret that as a finite list. So if it says such as, plum fruits, such as apricot and plum, it only means apricot and plum versus the wording including but not limited to. So like plum fruits, including but not limited to apricot and plum, then everything else, like applies also, or stone fruit or whatever that is, right? Yeah, we don't have them here, so I don't know. Okay. Uh, Directions for use. This is what I was talking about. This statement is a violation of federal law to use this product in a manner inconsistent with this labeling. This makes it a legal document. You must follow what it says on the label. It's not optional at that point, and you can get fined, and you can get fined a lot too. So just read the label and follow it. They're not easy to read a lot of times, which sucks, but it's a thing. Um, so it's important to really understand every product's labeling that you use and not just like follow what your friend said. Read the label. So you may not apply higher dosages than the label allows. You may not mix higher concentrations than the label allows. You may not make more frequent applications than the label allows. You may apply lower concentrations unless it says on the label that you can't. So oftentimes they'll have a range, right? And you have to stay within the range. But if it doesn't have that, you can apply a weaker or more dilute. And it's not recommended because you're, breeding resistant pests at that point, but you can legally. Um, Caveat there is commercial applications. So this is like if you are a service provider and you provide a service to someone else and you use a lower rate, you have to inform the client. You may apply to an unlisted pest only when the site is listed. So site in pesticide world is like your crop. But remember, there's other pesticide industries other than agriculture. There's like structural people that like it'll say patio or table or door frame or something like that. That's your site. Um, okay. So if the site is listed, you can, and it does not say like aphids, for example, it says mealybugs on the label. You can still spray for aphids. It just doesn't, not sure it's going to work or not, as long as your crop is there. You may use any application method not prohibited by the label. So if it doesn't say no, you can do it. You may mix with fertilizers when not prohibited. It does prohibit sometimes. There's sometimes chemical reactions and stuff that happen. You may tank mix several pesticides as long as your math works out on each pesticide and not prohibited by the label. Sometimes they do prohibit because there's chemical reactions. If you don't see your specific crop on a label, you may want to check the IR4 crop groupings if they have group such and such crops on the label. So IR4 is Interregional Project 4. We have a team here at UH. They do minor crop registrations, which is like most of what we do in Hawaii is minor crops. So it's really hard to find your crop on a label because they only say corn, soybeans, and wheat, right? We have IR4 in the IR4 team here that gets registrations for these crop groups. So you have product options. So if you don't see like coffee on there, you might want to check, like I don't know exactly actually which crop group is in there, but you see something that looks like it, you can scan this QR code, go to the IR4 crop grouping, and they'll have a full list in there of all the crops that are allowed. within that crop group. Okay, directions for use. Um, yeah, there's some new stuff out there now that just happened like last year. They have this thing that says consult your county bulletin, which what does that mean? Or ask your extension agent or something like that. Um, really weird. It's not always the same wording, but if it says bulletin in there or county whatever, you have to do this new thing. It's called Bulletins Live 2. You have to go there if your product has that in the label. So like new labels coming online now are starting to have it. Malathion for sure. Admire also has one. Um, others as well, yeah. So you have to go to this website. It's called Bulletins Live 2. It's on the EPA website. They have this map. You click on where you are on the map, and you see all that red stuff. The red stuff is a PULA or pesticide use limitation area. It gives you extra restrictions that you have to follow. Um, it's really not that easy to use, but what you do is you go to the map, you click on where you are, and it will come up with all the use limitations in your area. So this is Oahu. I'm sorry, it's not a big island, but anyway, um, you can see the whole island of Oahu, except for like two little dots, is in a pula, right? So we have all these products with restrictions. You check for your product if it's in the list. You have to follow those restrictions. If it's not in the list, you don't have to do anything extra, except that you have to print this out. So you'll get a chart that looks like this, and it'll say printable bulletin on the top right over there. I don't know if you can see that, but anyway, you print it out, and you have to have a printed copy every 6 months. So within 6 months of use of your product, and if you get inspected, you must have this, even if there is no restrictions. You have to show the inspector that there were no restrictions. Okay, how am I doing on time here? I got 2 minutes. Oh man, I'm not gonna make it through. All right. We could do more next time. It'll be cool. Anyways, there'll be entry statements. Any agricultural thing you're doing. So you guys are all like orchard people, coffee people. You have to use agricultural use box as your go-to. People that do like parks and rec, they don't, they're not agriculture, so they have a different set of standards that they have to follow on the label. It's not in the agricultural use box. Theirs will say oftentimes like don't enter until sprays have dried or don't let people and pets in until the application is complete. That's it. But agriculture, there'll be a restricted entry interval in its hours to days that no one can go in there and you have to post and stuff like that. And then they'll have extra PPE for agricultural use, especially for early entry work. Yeah. I think we can go through this. We still have a little bit of time. So the hazard statements on labels, they'll talk about acute effects, delayed effects, allergic effects. These are all different things. The signal word is for acute toxicity. So just know that there are other types of, um, I guess, sickness you can get from it, like delayed effects, chronic effects, and then sensitization as well, which are not in the signal word, right? Um, yeah, there'll be PPE statements in there, environmental hazards, and physical and chemical hazards. If you don't mind, I'm gonna, in my last 30 seconds, I'm gonna skip to this PPE page because I think it's quite important, and then I'll be quiet and we can go through more later. So they'll say in a PPE section in a label what um, chemical category your gloves need to be resistant to, or they'll give you specific materials in specific thicknesses. So you'll often see um, like just an example, right? It'll say category A, materials including barrier laminate, rubber butyl, 14 mils or more, nitrile rubber, blah, 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 right? You might just see something that says use barrier laminate, or you might see something that just says category H. So you need to look at the materials that you have for your PPE. So like this, like apron, boots, gloves, right? That sort of thing. What material is it made out of, and is it actually protecting you or not? And check the label because you can see that like nitrile rubber, you know, the green gloves that everyone loves, right? They give high protection to category A, but category B, it's slight. And what is slight protection? If you read on the bottom, you need to replace your PPE after 10 minutes of contact because it's already soaked in. It's not protecting you anymore, it's contaminating you, right? So you need to be in the high zone for chemical protection. So any product or like any material that you're using for your gloves need to use the high protection. Okay, so like the only material that's highly resistant to all chemical categories is barrier laminate. So if you're going to buy one set of gloves for everything, barrier laminate's the one you would use. Caveat there, barrier laminate is super slippery. So it's like, kind of thick plastic and you try to grab a jug, you could drop it, right? So it's not necessarily the safest thing. It's just the one that's chemical resistant to all categories. You may need several different types of PPE for different products. Slight, anything in the slight category is not protecting you. Even moderate, 2 hours of contact, you need new PPE already. Like, hey, that's not really useful, right? It's expensive, hard to track, right? Just always get high. Okay, I'm kind of done with my soapbox there. We can do more next time if you guys want. But